Hey everyone, it's Minutia Minute back with another video. I just wanted to take a little bit of time this weekend to talk about some of the other books that I've been reading. So obviously every week I'm doing the DC Infinite Frontier, but that's not all that I'm reading, and so I thought over the weekend it might be kind of fun to share what I read last week in comics that wasn't Infinite Frontier related. So the big project for me this week was rereading Dark Knight's Metal, which I have not read since it came out. The reason why I went through these again was twofold. First of all, a couple weeks ago I read through Grant Morrison's Multiversity, which I really enjoyed, and with it having such a heavy influence on Dark Knight's Metal, it made me want to go back because I knew I would understand the story more than I did originally. And also, I recently picked up the Hawkman ongoing series in trade, and I know that that kind of spun out of Dark Knight's Metal, so it kind of made me want to just go back and reread. When I read this book originally, I read all the books, all the tie-ins, all the one-shots. It got bogged down in all these little side stories and all these little backstories to the Dark Knight, you know, the various Dark Knight characters. And I got a little bit lost and all felt a little bit convoluted. This time, I just focused on the 6 issues and then just a few of the tie-ins. So obviously I read the Prelude one-shots that came out ahead of time. And then I did read Batman Lost, Hawkman Found, of course, because the whole point was that I'm going to be reading the Hawkman trade. And I did read Dark Knight's Rising Wild Hunt. And then after I finished, I actually went back and read the Batman Who Laughs one-shot. And this was a lot of fun to go back and reread. It was interesting because when I read it the first time, like I said, I found the whole thing a little bit obtuse and very inside baseball. Again, partly because I hadn't read Multiversity, so my head just wasn't really in that space. Not that I don't understand the DC multiverse in general, but my head just wasn't really there. Whereas going at it directly from digging through Multiversity in detail, my mind was already thinking that way, and so it was just a lot easier for me to get into the story. What I found going back and rereading it was that overall, I definitely liked it, but I also found that as the series went on, it definitely kind of fell apart. The first several issues are really good. Obviously the art is great, and it's got some good writing by Scott Snyder, but I think that to a certain degree, the plot itself kind of falls apart, because like the whole premise is to introduce this, you know, new dark universe, and then they need to find ninth metal in order to defeat these people. So they try to find the ninth metal, which they basically can't find it. They ultimately find the 10th metal, kind of by accident, and I guess maybe that's what the issue is they don't really do anything or solve anything. They kind of are like, well, this is our last hope. Everything they do is their last hope. And it's just a last-ditch effort, so they just kind of throw anything at the wall until one of those things happens to work out for them. So you're supposed to really feel it when Superman and Batman are sinking into the Forge, but it's really just a deus ex machina, and the characters don't really have a lot of agency by the time you get to the end of the story. So it's a rousing finale, and it's got all this great art and a lot of fun metal stuff in it, but it definitely rings kind of hollow. I do plan on going through and reading Dark Knight's Death Metal at some point in the near future. Not sure exactly when. I'm guessing it's going to answer a lot of the questions I have about what's going on in Infinite Frontier right now. So definitely something I need to get through at some point. Just haven't done it yet. Overall, it'll be interesting to see, is it better or worse than this? Because this had a lot of hype when it was coming out, and it started really strong, but at the end of the day, it just kind of fell into that typical DC fatigue for me. Having said all that though, after reading it, I was planning on going directly into Hawkman, but I did get detoured by Justice League No Justice, which is interesting. I'm curious to know what you guys think of this book. I saw it on my shelf and I was like, oh yeah, I never read that. And, obviously Dark Knight's Metal ends with a tease for this, so I was like, well, maybe I should just take a minute, sit down and read through this. And I literally got 3/4 of the way through the book before I realized I have actually read this before, and I just don't remember it because it sucked. Sorry for those of you guys who are no Justice fans or Scott Snyder Justice League fans. I have not read anything of his Justice League other than this book. But I gotta say, I was extraordinarily disappointed by this. Concept of this story is after Dark Knight's Metal, when they reassembled the universe, there's now a hole in the source wall. And the Green Lanterns are trying to keep everything in, but these massive titans wreak havoc on Brainiac's world and then come for Earth. That's basically the premise. Brainiac enlists 4 different Justice Leagues, they each have different team names. I don't remember. There's like Team Entropy and Team Wisdom or whatever. I honestly don't really remember. And they have to go to all these different special trees that the Titans are gonna fixate to. All big, broad, intergalactic superheroics, which in concept, I don't really have a problem with. My problem with this book is that they don't spend any time with these characters. Over the course of 4 issues, they have 4 different Justice League teams, all with a complete complement of characters, and they're like interesting groups. Like you've got Batman with Deathstroke, Lobo, Lex Luthor, and Beast Boy. Like that sounds awesome. But the problem is they don't actually do anything with it because it's all crammed into this 4-issue arc, and you just don't really get a sense of what makes these a good team up, other than the fact that Brainiac says that this is the team that should be. I just don't understand what the value of that is. The whole thing felt just rushed and boring. Having gotten through that, I went immediately in to Hawkman. And I don't know why I picked it up. I think it was really just a matter of I had heard it was good and I was like, you know what the heck, let's give it a try. One of the things that makes a great reinvention of a character is when you take the core concept and just tweak it a little bit. So the big tweak in this is not only is Carter Hall reincarnated across time, he's also reincarnated across time and space. So not only has he been an Egyptian pharaoh and all these other things, he's also been aliens on other worlds at other times throughout history. And then they add another layer into the mix, which is if time isn't linear, he may be reincarnated like in the future before being reincarnated in the past. And it just does a lot of little things like that that are just a lot of fun to read and makes for an interesting mystery, because Carter Hall, every time he's reincarnated, remembers less and less. So he's leaving clues for himself in order for him to be able to stop this big threat that's looming that he knows he's going to have to deal with, but he can't remember what it is. Just great storytelling by Robert Venditti. And on top of it, you've got excellent, excellent art by Brian Hitch that just really takes this book over the edge. I'm really excited to read the remaining issues, but at the same time, I gotta admit, I'm sad to know that this is ultimately going to be a book with a shelf life and it's only going to run for a few issues. I hope that it stays as high quality as it started, because this was a very, very pleasant surprise. And I'm actually thinking about going back and picking up some old runs of Hawkman now, which is something I never thought I would say. So last, but certainly not least, is an image graphic novel I picked up called Pulp. This is by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. I'm always willing to give these two people a shot. It's one of those where I have certainly not read their entire catalog. They have a ton of books out together. I've never read Criminal, for example. But when the mood strikes me and I want that noir, hard-boiled storytelling, pulp storytelling, you're pretty much guaranteed to get something good from these guys. And I have to say that this book did not disappoint. I didn't know anything about it other than the cover, which is, it's a pulp western. That was all I thought. I didn't even open the book when I bought it. I just picked it up and decided to give it a read. And this was a book that just plays to things that I am interested in. It takes place actually in 1939, during the golden age of pulp and comic books. And it follows a writer who's writing his own exploits from when he was in the Old West. So you have this sort of Old West pulp element. You also have this 1930s post-Depression, pre-World War II New York. And the whole thing was really, really well done, very interesting. It had really cool Western art, and it also had some really, really classic, 1930s New York art in it as well. It definitely is a book that wades pretty deep into the current political landscape and how it mirrors the landscape of the past. But it does it in, I think, a really, really intelligent way. Nothing super groundbreaking, but also just really compelling characters and a really interesting storyline. If you didn't read Pulp, definitely a book I would recommend, just very much for mature audiences, not for everybody. And so that's what I read this last week in comics. So if you have any thoughts on Dark Knight's Metal, Justice League No Justice, Hawkman Volume 1, or Pulp, be sure to let me know down in the comments. Have a good weekend.